All right, guys, welcome to our Unit 1, Target 1B notes here. We are going to continue talking about our measurements of our single variable data sets, but we're going to change directions a little bit. Instead of talking about central tendencies, our mean, median, mode, and all that stuff, what we're going to start talking about is the spread of the data sets. And what that really just means is how far apart are the data points from each other. And we break that down and we measure that both with numbers and graphically in some specific ways that we're going to talk about in these notes. So in the last set of notes, we learned how to use our graphing calculators to find a number of different pieces of information. But one of them that we used was 5 numbers, the min, the max, the quartile 1, quartile 3, and the median. And those together are known as the 5. Whoops, let me change my my font size here a little bit. All right, hopefully this will be a little bit better here. Our 5, there we go. 5 number summary. All right, 5 number summary. You can see these 5 numbers over here are the 5 number summary. And if you remember, we got that in our calculator using the one variable stats that we worked on in the last set of notes and homework. So we do know already how to find these numbers. So what we're really going to be doing in these notes is how do we represent these numbers graphically so that we can see how spread out the data is. And what we're going to do to accomplish that is we are going to be using what we call a box plot. All right, so you can see there the definition. The box plot is a graph that shows how the data of a set is distributed based on the 5 number summary. All right, so the 5 number summary, like we talked about, just like a basketball game, creates 4 quarters. The minimum is the beginning of the game. The first quartile is in between the first and second quarter. The median is halftime. The third quartile is in between the third and the fourth quarters. And then the maximum would be the end of the game. All right, when we make our graph, as you can see down below, our quarters are going to be represented by lines and boxes. The first and the fourth quarters are lines, and the second and the third quarters are boxes. And this is really, really important, guys, each quarter contains the same number of values. Now, that does not mean each quarter, each box and line will be the same length. The boxes and lines will be longer or shorter based on how spread out the values in a quarter are, right? So you can see down below here in our example, we've kind of got a lot of information laid out down here for you, so you can kind of look this over. But right here, guys, this is the first quarter, this line, right? This is the second quarter. I don't remember the right quarter there. This is the third quarter. And this little line right here would be the fourth quarter. All right, and what we've really got to understand is that when we talk about how many numbers there are in each of these quarters, just like in a basketball game, the quarters remain exactly the same number of minutes, no matter how many points are actually scored in that quarter. Same deal here. Just because the first quarter is much, much longer than the second quarter or the fourth quarter, the number, if there's 5 numbers in the first quarter, there's 5 numbers in the second, 5 in the third, and 5 in the fourth. All right, so now that we've talked about this, if you need a second to pause the video and look at this this layout here of a graph, take a second to do so. But let's now actually go ahead and do this here where we actually make a box plot. So what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to use our calculators to get the information of our 5 number summary, just like we did when we were working in the last unit here. So let's take our calculators. We'll put in 39, 20, 29, 27, 55, 33, 28, 31, 30, 33, and 37 in our list, right? And notice these are how many points Benny is scoring in his basketball game. So Benny, great job, man. You're killing it out there. All right. So let's go to calc, one variable stats. Make sure whatever list you put the information in is what you're looking at, and hit enter. All right, so if we did this correctly, our minimum should be 20. Our first quartile should be 28. our median should be 31, our third quartile should be 37, and our maximum should be 55. All right, now here's one thing we gotta make sure we are aware of. We've got to always determine if there are outliers, because you can see in the graph above, outliers don't get put in the quarters. Outliers are still points on the graph, but you can see that little asterisk star point kind of has to go out there by itself. So to do that, as we did in the last notes, we've got to determine the fences. So we can see our IQR, 37 minus 28, is going to be 9. 1.5 times 9 is going to be 13.5. And then if I add 13.5 to Q3, I'm going to get 50.5 for my upper fence, right? And if I subtract it from 28, I'm going to get 14.5 for my lower fence. So now we got to look at our numbers here. Are there any games of Benny's points that are lower than 14.5 or greater than 50.5? And yep, we have one. 55 is an outlier. So here's the deal. Even though 55 is our maximum and should be the end of our data set, all right, it's not actually going to be the end of the line for the fourth quarter. We are going to have to use the largest point that is not an outlier as the end of the fourth quarter. And so we'll show you that a little more clearly when we actually start drawing our graph here. So before we can draw our graph, though, we've got to label our number line. Now, I don't need you to start at 0. What I do require on the number line is that the intervals are consistent, right? And that you can actually contain the point. You don't need to number this by ones. We need to go from a minimum of 20 to a maximum of 55. So maybe going by 5s would be good. So we'll start out here at 20, and I'll go 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and 55. And that would be plenty good for labeling our number line. Notice I did not just use the quartiles to label the number line. You've got to make sure you label it with consistent intervals before you start putting points on there. So now we can start graphing. So here's my minimum, right? First quartile is 28, so that's going to be about there. Median is 37, so somewhere right in there. Oh, sorry, no, my bad. Let's check that. I apologize. Median was 31, right? The third quartile was 37, right? So let's label these because I got confused a little bit there. Right, this is our median here. This is my third quarter. Now here's the catch. My maximum is out here, but because that's an outlier, it is not going to be included in my graph. So I need to look for the next largest number that is not an outlier, and that is 39. So I'm actually going to end the fourth quarter at 39. Largest, oops, you don't spell largest with the T. Largest non-outlier, right? So then what I need to do is I need to connect the minimum in the first quartile with a line. So I draw a line there, and the third quartile and the end of the fourth quarter here, 39, with a line. Then I connect a box, a rectangle between first quartile and the median, and a rectangle between the median and the third quartile. And there we have our graph. And so what is this graph telling us? Well, if we look at it, we can see that the second quarter, right, this is our second quarter, and our fourth quarter are very similar in spread. So the data points in those two quarters are very close together. So think about like if it was just like an NBA game, there would not be a lot of points scored in those quarters. But in the first quarter and the third quarter, you can see they're very spread out, right? A lot of spread there, so they scored a lot of points. That does not change the number of minutes, though, that an NBA game is played in each quarter. The same deal here. The same number of data points is in the first, second, and third quarter. They're all equal there. All right, so that's kind of how we do this by hand, but there is a way to do this in our calculator. So this is going to be a little bit difficult to follow because I can't show you the calculator as we do it. So you're really going to have to try this on your own, following the directions here. We'll walk through it together, and I'll show you what you should get from the calculator. If you have questions about this, please make sure you ask on Monday, and we will go over that. All right, so first thing we've got to do, as always, is choose our stat, and then go to edit, and we've got to enter data points in our list. So let's go down below here, and we are going to enter the number of diapers Mr. Doll changed per day. This was when my baby daughter was newborn, and man, did I changed a lot of diapers. So 13, 8, 10, 9, 9, 14, 3, 6, 11, 10, 15, 13, 12, 11, 9, 13, and 14. All right, so now let's go back up. We've got our data in the list. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hit the stat plot function. So second y equals, you can see that there. And what we need to do is choose plot 1. But before you choose plot 1, make sure all the other plots are turned off. All right, if any of the other plots are turned on, it's going to really throw off the graph you get on your calculator. All right, so once we make sure we do that, choose plot 1. All right, and you can see the diagram down below here, right here, kind of telling you what it should look like. So you should turn plot 1 on because it's probably turned off. Arrow down to type. Then we need to go to the fourth option, right? This looks like a little box plot, and notice it has little arrows. There's 2 box plots. We want the fourth one, not the fifth one. Then make sure the list that you put your information in is in the X list there. So if you put it in L1, make sure it's L1. If you used L6, make sure it's L6. All right, once we've got this done, all right, we finished this step here. Now we want you to hit the zoom button. It's right up on the top row in the middle. And then we're going to choose number 9. You can either arrow down to number 9 or just hit the number 9. And you should have a graph of this box plot here. All right, now, the fact when you look at this box plot, all right, we can then use the trace button. So that's the fourth one right next to zoom. And as you hit the trace button, what you're going to see is a little cursor pop up. And in the bottom left is going to be telling you our 5-number summary. So you can see our minimum is 3. Now hit the arrow to the right. You can hit first quartile is 9. Hit the arrow to the right. Our median is 11. Our third quartile is 13, and our maximum is 15. All right, again, if you ever need to pause the video, stop it, listen, go back, check stuff, feel free to do so. We can see our inner quartile range would be 4. Now, normally we would then have to go forward and find the F values. But here's the really nice thing. If we graph this with the correct options and everything we said, the graph will tell us the outliers. Now, as you look at your graph, do you see any points that is outside of the first quarter or the fourth quarter? And the answer should be no. Since we see no points, like we had the 55 over here, right? And we should add this to this here, outlier, right? We don't see a point just hanging way outside our box plot. We know there are no outliers here. All right, so let's label our number line here. We can probably do this by 2s. So 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. I have my minimum at 3. My first quartile is at 9. Median's at 11. Third quartile 13 at 15. I'm going to put a box and a box, a line and a line, and voila, we have a box plot. So that's what we should have. If your graph on your calculator does not look something similar to that, or you did not get these numbers, please make sure you make note of that, and when we come back on Wednesday, we'll talk about it. All right? Well, that's what we got. If you've got this down, that you can take the 5-number summary and graphically represent the spread of our data set with the box plot, you're looking like you're in really good shape. Again, there will be no homework tonight since we didn't really have a chance to talk about this together in class. We'll go over any questions and practice this more in class on Wednesday. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you had a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.